In this lesson of body systems, we are looking at organs. And so firstly, we're going to ask ourselves, what is an organ? And then in the lesson, we're going to cover the brain, the lungs, the liver, the kidney, and the heart. And there are more organs in the body than that, but they're just the primary ones that we're going to talk about in this lesson. So firstly, the question is, what is an organ? And it comes from the Latin word organum, which means an instrument or a tool. And an organ is a collection of tissues that form a functional unit specialized to perform a particular function. So really it aligns well with that Latin word instrument or tool because it's designed to do a specific thing. Much like when we looked at cells and we had specialized cells for a special purpose, the organs can we think of as specialized for a specific purpose. So starting off with the brain. The brain is the control center of the nervous system, and it's located within the skull. So it is basically the thing that makes all the decision making. It gathers all of the information from the rest of the body, and then it tells the rest of the body what to do with that information. Some of the things that the brain is responsible for is things like muscle control, coordination, sensory reception and integration, as in your sensing, ability to feel things, smell things, react to pain, all of those kinds of things. Your speech is controlled by the brain, memory storage is done within the brain, and your elaboration of thought and emotions is all controlled within the brain. So it's a very important organ. Fun fact for the brain is that 75% of the brain is made of water, and an average adult brain weighs around 1.5 kilograms, which is actually quite a lot. The lung is the next organ. The lungs are two sponge-like, cone-shaped structures that fill most of the chest cavity. The essential function of the lung is to provide oxygen from the air that we inhale and then distribute that into the bloodstream. And then we exhale carbon dioxide as a byproduct of our respiration process. Interesting fact for the lungs, they aren't the same size. The left lung is smaller, and that's to make space for our heart sitting underneath it. So very, very important that we have space for our heart. So the left lung is smaller as a result. Lungs actually float on water. So it's a bit of a weird experiment, and I don't know how we discovered that, but if you were to take a lung out and put it on water, it would float. So you can make yourself a sweet raft out of lungs. You also breathe around 7 liters of air every minute. So you picture that, that's 1 liter of air you breathe every single minute. The liver is our next organ. The liver lies on the right-hand side of the abdominal cavity. When we talk about abdominal cavity, we're sort of talking about that region around what we might call, say, our stomach. Basically, everything below your chest or your rib cage down is our abdominal cavity. And they sit beneath the diaphragm, which is the muscles that are responsible for helping you breathe. The main function of the liver is to process the contents of the blood and ensure the composition remains the same. So they're all about dealing with the blood. This is things like breaking down fats. They produce urea, which is another word for pee. They filter harmful substances out of the blood, and they maintain proper levels of glucose. So very, very important. The body cannot run without glucose, but also it cannot run if you've got too much glucose. So the liver is all about maintaining that balance, filtering out all of the other stuff. It's basically like the filtering system for your blood. Fun facts for the liver. Besides the skin, which is technically an organ, the liver is the largest. And it is the only organ that can regenerate itself. So you can actually cut off a small piece of your liver, and from that point it can grow completely back into a liver. And this is one of those really impressive technologies that we're looking at trying to implement into other things. In theory, if you could harness that feature into the rest of your body, a bit like a skink, you could regrow an entire limb like your tail or a leg or something like that if it had the same ability that your liver has. Kidneys are the next organ. They're two bean-shaped organs that are located on the back of the abdominal cavity. So kind of towards the back and the sides of your body. There's one on each side of your spinal column. The function of the kidney is to maintain the body's chemical balance by excreting waste products and excess fluids in the form of urine. So as we saw before, the liver is also responsible for filtering some of the blood. The kidneys are actually now the ones that produce the urine. They're taking all of those nutrients and things that we don't want and the excess fluid in the body. They suck that out and they produce your pee. Fun facts for the kidneys. The average kidney is the size of a mobile phone, And we're talking modern 2021, so the iPhone looking thing, not the old 70s brick. And your kidneys filter around 180 litres of blood per day, which is enough to fill an entire bathtub. So it's a pretty hard working filtering system. The trusty heart. It's a hollow muscular organ that pumps blood through the blood vessels by repeated rhythmic contractions. So the heart obviously is probably the most well-known and certainly a very, very important organ. It's the thing that pushes the blood around the body. So it both pulls it from certain areas and then pumps it out to the other areas. Fun facts for the heart. The average heart is the size of an adult's fist. So for me, fist. Your heart will beat around 115,000 times per day, which is a lot. Your heart pumps 8,000 litres of blood per day. So if we compare that going back, 180 litres of blood filled a bathtub, your heart is pumping around 8,000 litres of blood a day. So you can do some quick math there. That's a few bathtubs. A woman's heart beats slightly faster than a man's. Interesting fact. The beating sound of your heart is actually the opening and closing of the valves. So that sort of like boom, boom sound that you always attribute to your heartbeat, you can listen to it yourself. What you are actually hearing is the rapid opening and closing of the heart valves. The heart itself is not a drum, it's not banging from side to side, and it's not like slapping against itself making a noise. It's actually the valves opening and closing rapidly that creates that sort of beating noise that we know as the heartbeat. So for this lesson, the Frankenstein module, you need to add an image of each organ in its correct position with labels. So that includes the organs that we've covered today. You also need to mention what the function of the organ is and give me an interesting fact about it. Try to find something that wasn't a fact that I gave you in the lesson, but if you can't find anything else, feel free to use one of my interesting facts. Make sure you include the organs that weren't covered in the lesson. So if you refer to the original picture in this video or on the slides, there are more organs than I have talked about. So in a couple of these cases, you're going to have to do a little bit of research and figure out for yourself what that organ actually does. As I said, there are quite a few organs, and I even mentioned that the skin is an organ. So if you wanted to add that, just add a small picture of some skin, or just have some labels onto your Frankenstein model. You don't have to create an entire skin to put over the thing. It's going to get very complex. So that is Operation Frankenstein for organ systems.
Girl, you could be my new thing.